Welcome back to Miss Lisa's video channel on YouTube. And I want you to like, share, subscribe. We're here. This is where we talk about all of the things I like in math and science. Or maybe not all of them, but a lot of them. And what we're talking about today is biology. So this is a class designed primarily for homeschoolers, but if you like the way I explain things, come on in. You're welcome here too. We're going through this book, Glencoe Biology, an Everyday Experience. I like it because it's an older edition that homeschoolers can get for cheap. It is got good labs that homeschoolers can do without having a lot of expensive, specific equipment. And it's good if you have a microscope, some slides, and maybe some dissectables. But you know, there are a lot of people who don't ever dissect, and that's okay too. So you don't have to have very specific equipment. Instead, we do more things with living labs. And I always say biology is the study of life, not death. So I like living labs. I like having critters to look at. So I'm Miss Lisa. Glad you're here. And in this book, we are talking about circulation. So this chapter is circulation. We're going to talk about the circulatory system. And it's very interesting. What is the point of your circulatory system? It's pickup and delivery. So you have your blood system, your heart, your lungs are all part of this. And of course, it is absolutely vital to you living. Some things you don't need. You can have your gallbladder removed and be okay. You can have your appendix removed and be okay. You can have your tonsils removed and be okay. But the stuff we're talking about today, you won't be okay. All of this is absolutely crucial to you being alive. So, now, first we'll start talking about animals, circulation in animals. Now, animals can have no circulatory system. Sponges, hydra, aquatic animals use the ocean sometimes to be their circulatory system. They get their nutrients out of the ocean as they bring the water in. They let their waste go into the ocean as they let the water out. And the ocean flowing to and fro is their circulatory system. It carries dissolved oxygen to them, and everything else they need is in the ocean water or in the water that they use. So that's the first kind, no circulatory system. Next is having a circulatory system. There's two types, open and closed. In an open circulatory system is something like bugs will sometimes have a heart in the middle that squishes all the stuff out of it, their stuff that's kind of like blood. It squishes it out of it. It just goes out through them, and then and sucks it all back in. So it's like having a big pump going, and it's just squishing it out, sucking it in, squishing it out, sucking it in. And it works because they're so small. They're so small that they don't need a very complex circulatory system. But remember we looked at earthworms. Earthworms remember I told you they had hearts, not just heart, but hearts. They have hearts, and they have a closed circulatory system, which means they have hearts and blood in veins, in tubes that keep it separate from everything else. It doesn't just squish out and go back in. So you're going to be doing a lab looking at, so you're going to need to buy earthworms again, back to Walmart, back to the bait area and get your little tub of earthworms again, or dig them out of your yard. However, remember we all got stung by yellow jackets when last time I did it, and I said, never again, we're going to buy them. So I always just buy I pay full price. I buy the worms now. So that is the lab that you're going to be doing on page 224. You're going to compare a worm's pulse to yours. So you're going to learn to get your pulse, and how you do it is, I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, you can. Okay, see those two lines on my wrist? See, having bony wrist come in handy. What you do is you find those two lines, and then you put your fingers, not your thumb, but your fingers, because your thumb has a pulse, but your fingers don't. You put it right on the side of those lines. See those lines right here? I'm going to go right here on the thumb side, and I'm going to push down until I feel a heartbeat. And that's how you can get your pulse. The other way you can do it is on your neck, right where I'm pushing on my neck. I can feel my pulse right there. So you're going to need to find your pulse and be able to feel it. And I'd like you to find it in both places. So it takes some work, and kids always get frustrated. I can't find it. And I'm like, I can find it. It's right here. I'll push on their wrist. And then they're like, okay, now you push right where I pushed, and then they find it. So I want you to find your pulse, and you're also going to get the pulse of a worm. And yes, you're going to have to touch the worm because you got to put water on him and keep him alive. And then you're going to be able to get his pulse and compare it to yours. So that's your first lab you'll be doing this week. That sounds fun, doesn't it? All right, and now we're going to talk about the human heart. It's about the size of your fist. And so different people have different size fists because they have different size hearts, because we come in different sizes, don't we? The heart structure is, if you cut away of it, you'll see it in your book on page 225. It's got 4 sections. These are called atrium and ventricles. It's got 2 little atriums up top and bigger ventricles down bottom, is left and right. And you can see a picture of what a heart looks like. That's in your book also. Now, what I did last year when I taught biology, in addition to these other labs, is I got some chicken hearts. They sell them at Food Depot where I shop. You can buy gizzards, and they had hearts. And we cut those open and looked at them also, and stuck our fingers in the little holes so we could feel the chambers of the chicken heart. Now, we have 4 chambers to our hearts. Not all animals have 4 chambers. They're not the same. Different animals' hearts are slightly different. That's not surprising, is it? Because we're different in other ways too. But so anyway, in between the atriums and the ventricles are valves, and they're like one-way trap doors. So it lets the blood through, but it doesn't let it go backwards. You don't want your blood going backwards. That is bad. So also another part of your circulatory system is you have arteries and veins. Arteries have the blood in them that's leaving the heart going to your body. They're under high pressure. They're the ones you can feel your pulse in. Because you notice, like, if you just have a regular old vein, a blue vein on the back of my hand, see being veiny pays off. I put my fingers on there, no pulse. Veins don't have the pulse. It's the arteries that do. But the arteries carry the blood from your heart out to your body, and the veins carry it back to your heart again. So your book shows the blood from the veins is blue, and the artery part red. But I always have to tell kids, your blood is not really blue. I know they talk about British people being royalty and that they're blue bloods, or people will look at their veins and go, blood, this is what the kids believe false. They'll say blood in your veins is blue, and then when you're cut, it hits oxygen and it turns red, and that's not true. Your veins are bluish looking. As you can tell by my hands, they are bluish looking. But the blood inside is not blue. It's either bright red or dull red. When it is has oxygen, it's bright red. If it has given up its oxygen to the cells, it's dull red, but it is not blue. Every year I have kids who say, isn't your blood blue inside of you? No, it's not. Not ever blue. Dull red or bright red. Okay, and if you've given blood, you've seen the blood come out of you. Well, y'all are too young to give blood. Once you're 16, you can give blood with your parents' permission. They have to sign. And then you have to be 18 to just go give blood. But if you've ever seen anybody give them blood, and you've seen the blood come out, or if you've been to the lab where you had to have blood drawn for some reason, you see that it's a dull red. They don't get it out of your artery, they get it out of your vein. If you have cut an artery, you can bleed to death because it is pumping out of you. So you want to be careful to never have your arteries cut. All right, back to the book there. Okay, so they explain how the blood pumps through the ventricles and stuff, but I think that later on in the book it explains it a little bit better. So the valves are these little trap doors that don't let it go back, and there's different ones in your body. One is between the left atrium and left ventricle. It's called the bicuspid valve. There is one between the right atrium and right ventricle called the tricuspid valve. There are semilunar valves located between the ventricles and their arteries. And so these are what make your heart beat, is this lub-dub, 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 are these doors, these little trap doors slamming shut, lub-dub, lub-dub, lub-dub. Now that's what you want. You want the lub-dub. You don't want the lub-swish-dub or the lub-dub swish, because that means that your valves aren't working good and you're getting blood flowing back through the trap door the wrong way. You don't want any swishes. My mother-in-law has some swish, and it makes you less healthy. It makes you have less energy. It makes you tired. It makes your heart's not good. So you don't want your valves messing up. You want your trap doors working and shutting the way they're supposed to, and not being out of rhythm, and all the blood going the way it's supposed to go. Now, look in your book. On page 229, you can see how what's really going on with the heart. Okay, so let's start with the blood's gone through our body already, and now it's going back to the heart. Okay, so this is going through a vein, not an artery, and it's collecting the blood back up and sending it back to our heart. When it does that, it's going through the veins, and the veins are not under high pressure, so they've got little trap doors in them to try to keep the blood going in the right direction. So it won't start going back the wrong way, because they're not under pressure anymore. So they go through the trap doors, and it keeps them all going one direction. It's like IKEA, where you just walk around with those little arrows on the floor telling you which way to go, and you're all confused. And I always feel like a cow, and like maybe I should say moo as I'm going through IKEA lost in the maze. But anyway, it's worth it though, because they got some good snacks in that cafeteria. I like that Loganberry juice, whatever that stuff is. Anyway, focus. Okay, so the blood is going through the trap doors. Oh, and also varicose veins. When you get older, and especially women seem to have a problems with this, and especially women when they're pregnant have a problem with this, sometimes your veins, the blood doesn't go back through the trap door, but it'll balloon out and get all stretched out, and it causes varicose veins, and they're painful. And it's genetic whether you have them or not. So some women get them and other women don't. But they can do surgery and stuff on them now, but it's really a problem for some ladies to have, and men can have them too. But it seems to be more of a problem for women, varicose veins. So anyway, okay, so here goes the blood in our veins back to our heart. Once it gets to our heart, it goes into the look at the little thing there. It's first going to go in the right side, and it goes from the atrium to the ventricle, and it gets a pump. It gets sent out, and where it goes into the heart is the vena cava. So it goes into this big vein called the vena cava into your heart, through the atrium, into the ventricle, and then squish, and off it sends it out through the pulmonary artery. Pulmonary means like lungs, and it's sending it to the pulmonary artery where it goes to the lungs. And the lungs, it goes to smaller and smaller blood vessels to where it's down to capillaries. And then in your lungs, you have these little air sacs called alveoli, and they're right together, this vein and the air sacs, and the oxygen is able to move out of the air sac into the vein, and the blood gets oxygenated. It absorbs the oxygen from your lungs, and now it's bright red. It was dull red. There I am sending some oxygen through the little air sacs to my vein blood, and getting it nice and bright red oxygenated. So then it's bright red, and it goes back to your heart again because it needs a good pump to send it out to your whole body. So now it's bright red, and it goes back to your pulmonary vein. This is taking the blood away from your lungs. Veins take away, arteries take too. So it's going to take it away from your lungs back to your heart again. Then it goes back into your heart and to the left side of your heart, and it goes into the atrium, the ventricle, and then Squoosh, out it goes into your aorta. So this is where it's under the most pressure. It's coming out of the heart. It's under great pressure, and it goes into your aorta. From the aorta, then it breaks into, part of it goes to your, make sure I got it, to your arms, to your trunk, and to your legs. I want to say the three designation in the order that they did. And then as it goes to those areas, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller arteries. And these are the ones that are thick and they beat and they're under high pressure. And if one gets cut, you'll bleed out. So meaning you're going to die because all your blood's going to come out. And they get smaller and smaller and smaller until it gets down to where the blood cells can only go through one at a time, single file. When it gets that one at a time, single file, that is called capillaries. They are tiny, tiny, tiny vessels, and they are neither arteries or veins. They're their own thing, capillary, and that is where the exchange takes place between the cells and the veins. This is where waste is picked up from the cells. Oxygen and nutrients, food is given to the cells, and it all happens, the exchange happens at the capillaries. And then from the capillaries, now it is given away all of its stuff that it needed to give away. Then it starts making its way back through the vein system back to your heart again. So that's it. That's what's going on with your system here. And that's why heart and lungs are always studied together, is because they are part of your respiration system. So you will see on page 232 where they explain the arteries. The arteries are the ones under pressure, and that's where your blood pressure comes from. You know, where they put that cuff on your arm and go ch-ch-ch. It's more fun with sound effects. And they get your pressure. It's your systolic and diastolic, I think I'm saying it right, pressure. And you want your blood pressure to be a good low amount, but not too low. That's bad too. You'll start passing out. But you want it to be low so you don't have hypertension, high blood pressure. High blood pressure can cause strokes and heart attacks and bad things like that you don't want to happen. So you want a good, healthy blood pressure. One thing that helps it is cardiovascular, that's heart, vessels, stuff like that, exercise, things like running, stuff like that where you get your heart rate up, actually will then help you have a lower blood pressure. I run, so every time they take my blood pressure, they go, ooh, that's really good. You must run. And I go, yes, I do. Because I always have very good low blood pressure because I started running when I was 13, 14, and haven't quit. And that was decades ago. We won't talk about how many. So running's a good sport because you can do it throughout your life. It doesn't take any fancy equipment, just some shoes, some good shoes. Buy the good shoes. I've had toenails come off because of buying the bad. They were actually Nikes, but they were just not good. And you got to have good shoes. And then just go run. It's great. I love running. Good for your for what we're talking about, your heart and all of that, and your blood pressure. So veins are what carry your blood back. You can see on page 233 the trap doors that keep your blood going in the right area, the right way. And on page 234 you see the capillaries, how the blood vessels can only go through one at a time there. All right, there is a lab you can do on page 235. You just need some squeeze bottles, make some holes in them. You don't have to have special stoppers. You could substitute some stuff here, but you're simulating blood pressure. Last year we did not do this lab because we didn't have time, but you could do it. It doesn't have any real fancy equipment, so you can do that one if you want. On page 236, they're using a garden hose to simulate blood pressure, and you can use that. You can go out and shoot the garden hose, squeeze it, and see what happens to see what happens when you squeeze the hose, what happens to the pressure of the water coming out. It is simulating you getting clogged arteries. What happens is you can get cholesterol. It's a sticky chemical that can get on the inside of your arteries, and it can narrow your arteries to where the blood can't get through, and it can cause strokes, it can cause heart attacks, And so it's a problem. But the weird thing about cholesterol is it's in the foods you eat. So some people say you shouldn't eat high cholesterol foods, but more than that, it's produced by your body, and it's more genetic than it is dietary. Some people can eat whatever they want and they're fine. Other people, it runs in their family to have high cholesterol, and it causes problems. And remember how I told you every bit of this is always controversial? This is too. There are some people who believe that eating cholesterol does not increase your cholesterol in your body. There's only genetics that do. And other people, including medical establishment, says that you should eat a diet that is low in cholesterol. But then, so they used to make it where they say, don't eat eggs because eggs have high cholesterol. But then the egg commission, the egg farmers all got together and paid for a study, and they found that there was no increase in a person's cholesterol by eating eggs. The eating the high cholesterol food did not cause the person to have more cholesterol. So study it for yourself. Do what your mama says. That's what I always say. It's up to you and your mama, not me. I'm just telling you that this is controversial, the whole cholesterol thing. And whether or not it really does cause strokes and heart attacks is a thing too. Now, so what happens is you end up, we all know why, but different people will tell you different reasons, but people can end up with cholesterol in their veins, in their arteries. It's in their blood vessels, and it gets more and more narrow, and including the vessels that go to the heart to give the heart its nutrients and its oxygen. Your heart isn't just a pump, it's a really important muscle, and it needs lots of nutrients and lots of oxygen to keep going. It's beating all the time. You don't want it to quit. You're gonna die. So the veins and the arteries that take the blood to the heart to give it what it needs get clogged, and then the heart can't beat because it's not getting what it wants, and you have a heart attack. So what happens, people have heart attacks, or they have some symptoms of heart problems, and they'll go in and they'll make a little cut in the artery that is in your lower stomach, and they'll go in there and they'll send a little camera up and they'll look around in your heart and they'll see how much blockage you have. Are these things blocked where it's not getting through? If it does have blockage, what they usually do now is they put in stents. They go in and put in these little things that spread it out, and then the blood can go through. And sometimes they'll do balloons. They'll send a balloon in and blow it up to kind of stretch it all out. And it saves lots of lives. And my husband had it done. One time he had pneumonia, and the pneumonia moved to his heart. So he was in great distress. When I took him to the hospital, it looked like he was having a heart attack. They used the heart attack kit on him, and then they were going to life flight him from our hospital in Paulding over to the one in Cobb that's the heart specialist people. But it was such bad weather, they had to take him in an ambulance. He was dying. He was doing awful. And they got him there, and they put him in the front of the line, and they sent the camera in, and they looked at his heart, and they thought there was like a heart attack or something, and there was going to be blockage. They sent the little camera in, and there was no blockage. He had no cholesterol buildup at all. And I'm like, how does this man have no cholesterol buildup? The guy eats Little Debbie's. How in the world? But they said he had none. That they had never seen one with none. But he had completely clean arteries. But what had happened is he had bacteria, pneumonia bacteria, go to his heart, and it caused his heart to become infected on the outside and the inside. On the outside is called pericarditis, and on the inside it's called myocarditis. And usually if this happens to you, you die. But he didn't. It definitely hurt his health, and it was a big deal. But like most people who I hear get it, and even young people can get this, die. But he didn't, so he's still alive, and it was a lot to overcome. But I was always so shocked that he had no cholesterol at all. And it was not because of diet. So it's definitely a hereditary thing, because he ate whatever he wanted to, and no cholesterol buildup at all, none. All right, so heart attacks is one of the problems that can happen, and that's when your heart quits beating because of this blockages. Preventing heart problems. There's 3 things you can do. And now a lot of it's hereditary. A lot of it, there's nothing to do. It's the way you were born. You know, get different parents. You can't do it. But things you can do to prevent it, to help your heart, is exercise. It's why I run. To have a good diet and to not smoke. Smoking has a huge connection with heart disease. What happens is people who smoke, their arteries tighten up and narrow, and then that causes high blood pressure, and they have less room to get any cholesterol and for them to be okay. My dad was a heavy smoker, and he died of his first heart attack at 58, which to me is so young. As I'm getting older, that is so young. So I don't smoke, and I exercise, and I try to watch my weight, because heart disease runs in my family, my dad's family. Lots of people in his family died of heart attacks young, and I don't want to. I want to be healthy and keep living. So I run, and I kind of watch what I eat. Not absolutely, but kind of. And don't smoke. I don't smoke. All right, so and the last thing your book talks about is that they have done artificial hearts, and it has kept someone alive up to 600 days. 600 days is not all that long, not even a couple of years. So an artificial heart is not the way to go yet, but maybe one day they'll be able to just take those bad hearts out and plop a new one in, some artificial one, because it's a pump. Oh, and that was the other thing I was going to tell you. How much blood do you think your heart pumps? In your lifetime, your heart will pump enough blood to fill a football stadium with blood. Isn't that weird? But it does. So go Hearts. Your heart started beating when you were in your mom's womb on day 18. Most women don't even know they're pregnant by then, and your heart was beating, and it will not stop till you die. So that's pretty amazing, isn't it? Those little beating hearts at 18 days old, and then never stops, hopefully, until, well, when you die it will stop, but you know, we don't want ours to stop for a long, long time. All right, so come back next time and we'll talk about something else. Like, share, subscribe. I'm Miss Lisa. Science is great.